Hey everyone, welcome to another Webflow live stream. I'm your host Nelson. Thank you for joining me this week. This is episode 150. 150. We made it. Man, it's been a long time doing these streams and I'm always excited to bring you new content. And if you're new to these live streams, just to let you know, these streams happen every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/webflow, and hit that notification bell so you'll know when we go live. And when we're live, you can join us in the live chat room and ask questions, discuss things with the rest of the community live. It's always fun to be in there. And if you're watching a recording, thank you so much for watching. So what are we doing this week? So at the end of every quarter, or near the end of every quarter, Vlad, our CEO, comes onto the stream and answers your questions, any of your questions you have about Webflow live. So right now we have Meg in the live chat room who is posting a link to the form for you to fill out and submit your question. So go ahead and submit your question there, and we'll get to it towards the later half of this stream. But before we get Vlad onto the stream, let's recap some of the things that the team has been working on. All right, let me get there we go. So here's one thing. There we go. So back in April, some small updates, but small, big. But it really helps the workflow, stuff like this, like link to specific pages in Designer. I don't know if you had the problem of like you want to share your real read-only link with someone, and you have to tell them, oh, go to this specific page, and this is where I need help. Or when you're trying to share a published page to a client, you have to tell them, oh, you have to click here, here, here to get to this exact page that I want you to show, or want you to see. Well, I mean, you don't have to do that anymore. Once you click publish and then click that little icon to go to that published page or the read-only link, it's already going to that specific page. So that's a big help. I mean, it's seconds that are saved, but you add all those seconds up, turns into minutes and sometimes hours and etc. etc. But what else have I been working on? Other notable things. Include project settings when duplicating sites. So if you've been duplicating sites and then you have to copy over all the hosting settings, all the SEO and any integrations you have, that also takes minutes out of your day, right? Well, the team has helped you out by letting you just click some checkboxes and you're good to go. Yeah. What else in April? This one's another big one. Let me see here. Let me pull this up. Creating a custom label and help text for the collection name field. So if you've been using Webflow for a while now, you've probably noticed that when you're creating a new collection, we always give you a name field. Okay, so it's that unique field that we assign to that one first field, and you can't change it. You can't do anything with it. But then there's people in different countries who are speaking different languages, or you have a client who speaks a different language and you want to change the word name to something else. Now you can do that. All right, let's move over to May, and I think this one's a huge one for a lot of people. The new navigator location. So we flipped it, kind of like in other tools that you are familiar with, like Sketch or Figma, where all your layers or your elements are on the left side. Well, if you haven't noticed yet, there's a beta toggle at the top right inside the navigator panel, and it says beta. Once you turn that on, we moved it to the left. And the cool thing about moving it to the left is you can now dock it or even make it wider. So if you have like nested elements within nested elements and it just keeps going for a while, you can have more space with that. And this is especially good if you have an ultra wide screen or a big screen and you're not using your laptop screen. This is really good because you can get more space. All right. And also in May, I think this is a pretty big deal right here too. The release of Grid 2.0, CSS Grid inside of Webflow. Now you can use autoflow. We've done a sneak peek demo with Linda, and she showed us how easy it is to even add grid to collection lists. So this is a pretty big deal. If you haven't played around with this yet, please do it and just see what awesome, unique layouts you can build with it. All right. And lastly, for this month, it's a little update, but again, it really helps your user experience as a designer. All right. So if you haven't noticed yet, in the navigator, we've added some little icons to show you which elements are hidden. Also, which elements are, a grid element that's manual, or even which element has interaction. Now, we've already had that before, the green circle with the lightning bolt showing which element has an interaction. But now we've extended that to other things like display none and manual grid elements. So, yeah. So the team has been doing a lot. All right. So let's go ahead and get Vlad on the stream. There we go. Hey, Vlad.
Hey, everyone. How's it going? Hey, Nelson.
Hello. Thank you for...
How's sunny San Diego? I bet it's...
It is hot.
I bet it's less hot than San Francisco. We're hitting some record temperatures, like over 101.
It was about 90s here. It was
See, San Francisco is usually foggy, but super hot right now.
Yeah, it is hot. Yeah. But thank you again for giving us some of your time to answer the questions from the community. It's always fun to have you on the stream. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, first thing I want to ask though is you've recently went to 2 conferences and spoke at them. You were at the awards conference and just last week Front Utah. Mm-hmm. And being a new speaker, how did this feel being in front of the largest audience you've ever been in front of talking about Webflow?
Completely overwhelmed and really, really nervous. It's I don't think it ever gets easier. I don't know, for me it seems to be getting harder over time for some reason. Maybe because the expectations are higher. I don't know. I
can see that.
And once it's over, it's the best feeling. It's definitely the best feeling. Like when you step off the stage and in all the areas that you've messed up, you sort of they're overshadowed by the awesomeness of having it over with. And then thankfully, having folks comment on it or say what they liked about it, etc., is super super awesome after the fact. Before the fact, you kind of lose all the you don't really know what's going on because you're kind of nervous about going on stage, etc. And especially in both cases, I think there was some, I went on after a break where people are still kind of moving around, so there's this awkward moment of cracking jokes or trying to get people to settle down while before starting the actual talk. So, but it was really exciting to talk about the future of where we see as a company software development, website development going, just empowering a lot more designers, entrepreneurs, creative people to be able to build amazing things for the web without having to learn how to code or have access to a developer. And that's a message that's always super exciting to share with people. And it's still surprising to see that many people assume that the only way to doing this kind of work is through code, and showing people a new way is always it's nice to see eyes light up, or and people are getting less and less skeptical over time, which is great.
I was gonna ask that. Did you see any nodding heads, agreeing with you? Did the message really get through to people?
Honestly, when you're talking, the way that the lighting works, you barely see people in the audience.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes you sort of latch on to a person or two that are just nodding along. They make you feel amazing. Just to get that positive validation or whatever. But it's so hard to see everything that you kind of are just in the zone of talking to a blank wall. But after the fact, people come up to you, or you sort of have conversations, and overall people are really resonating with this idea of, no code based development, visual development software that can be built by creative people just by dragging and dropping and visually working in rather than like writing all this complex code. And sure, some people are still skeptical, especially some engineers, which is understandable. I'm an engineer. We've built, it's hard for even me to imagine building something like Webflow with visual development tools. So that's probably going to be many, many years from now. But it's pretty exciting to see how excited people get and want to tell, some folks that they've talked to around, if somebody has an idea and they've told them about that idea, but they can't get it off the ground, that maybe this visual development or no code type of tools might be something that could help them get their idea off the ground, which is always exciting. And sometimes people get excited, like engineers get excited because they sort of say like, oh, well, now my friends aren't going to be asking me to build their next app idea or something like that.
Yeah.
So now I have some plausible deniability in saying, maybe there's a better way for you to do this that's faster. So those conversations are always fun.
Did people after your talks come up to you and give you feedback on your presentation, or even feedback about Webflow?
Yeah, I mean, like there was a whole range of conversations. Usually people would kind of start off with something that they heard in the talk and like kind of take it in a direction that's relevant for them, whether they're product designers or product managers or like somebody starting a business. And then we kind of go into like what they're trying to build or how their team works and how it can apply to them, which is always, everyone's situation is different. And it's great to see people's like minds start to tick around how they can bring in tools like Webflow and become like more efficient, more productive, more creative, etc.
Nice.
And it's really exciting that more and more people are just like, yes, I know about Webflow, which is totally unusual. Like even 3 years ago when I was doing talks, I had to introduce people to what Webflow is. And now it's sort of, for a lot of people, like, oh yeah, of course I know what it is. And I've used it, in XYZ scenarios. And sure, some people still have kind of a misunderstanding of what it is. Like they kind of think it's exactly like Squarespace or the last time I tried it out, it was many years ago before we had a lot of the capability that we have now. But it's pretty exciting to see that there's broader and broader adoption and more people know about us. And that feels good because it just shows that the community is growing, that people around our product and our company are getting more and more excited, and people are seeing kind of the longevity and stability of the company rather than like, oh, is this company going to be around 2 months
we
or the
kind we don't get those questions anymore.
Yeah, like if these Q&A talks 3 years ago were always around like, how do I know Webflow's going to be here tomorrow?
Well, that's awesome. I was gonna another thing I was gonna ask, just reflection. I remember you showing us like this little notebook where you first sketched the ideas of Webflow. And this is now almost the 6th year. And when's the 6th year anniversary of Webflow? What's the date? Is it August?
September 26th.
Okay.
Oh no, sorry. August 3rd or 6th or something like that. Like I know when we incorporated, I forget exactly when we launched. It was early August 2013.
Yeah. So
or late August 2013. One of those.
6 years from launch. Like as you step back and look how big the community and the Webflow staff has become, and how people are just accepting Webflow into their minds without any skepticism.
Accept it into your minds.
So, how does that feel at the end of a workday? You step back and it's like it started on paper and now it's this. Like, do you ever think about that and just wonder where it's going to go?
Yeah, that's it's a pretty overwhelming feeling, like what this community and what this product and what the ecosystem has become. And what's even more mind-blowing is that it feels like we're just getting started. It literally, like, all the things that we want to build, uh, we're just now scratching the surface, right? Like, I'm looking at the questions that are coming in right now around like multi-language support and custom queries and like more advanced interactions and building out our CMS and building out our e-commerce functionality. Like, we're just getting started. So it's sort of, I'm pretty sure we're going to look back on now, like I'm looking back, or like we're sort of looking back on these sketches that I had in a notebook from 10 years ago. And it's going to feel the same way. Like, we were sort of in sketch mode, not the design tool, the
Yeah.
sort of the noun slash whatever.
Yeah, I got
Not
you.
good at grammar. But I think that's the most exciting part. It's not like, yeah, it's really, there's a lot to celebrate of where we are now, but it's the opportunity feels so huge around where Webflow could still go and how much we can empower people to build, more and more powerful products and websites, and graduating beyond just websites and getting into user systems and like really really complex applications that then allow entrepreneurs and companies and really like embrace this visual development paradigm. And I think that is the most exciting, rather than sort of looking back and saying like, oh wow, we've come a long way. That's true, but I think what gets me the most fulfillment and the most kind of drive is how much we still have left to do, and the opportunity that's there, and mostly around like, not in the vanity sense of like how big of a company can we build or how much revenue can we make, etc. All that stuff is great, but it's more around like how can we impact the world and how much more can we empower and democratize others to create new businesses, create new products, create new websites, and the sky's the limit there. So
Yeah.
super excited about that.
And what is so nice to hear is the fire, the passion for this tool still years later, and you and the team have accomplished so much, and you saying we're just getting started, it's that passion, that feeling, hearing from you, the CEO, is what the community latches onto, and it's really nice to hear. I mean, that just gets me fired up. I know an employee, but I'm just like, oh my god, yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
So let's do this.
By the
Let's
way,
get into
the most of the like the passion and the fire, etc., is generated by Russian bots that I control. So just the caveat that most of it is manufactured, and
Vlad. This is live. We can't cut that.
hey,
Secrets out. Okay. Let's get into the questions from the community. And again, Meg is in the chat room right now, linking the form. Go ahead and fill out that form with your question, and we'll get to it as soon as we can. We may not get to all of them, but yeah, just submit it anyway. So the first one, I see already a couple people have asking this. Let's see here. Roman, Leslie, Roman, Vladimir, and Lucio are asking about ETA on the multi-language support.
Whew. There's multiple parts to software lifecycle, right? There's intention, there's sort of research, then there's development, and you actually get it out there. And it's hard for me to publicly say right now how that translates to an actual release date. Translate, get it? Translate.
I was about to spit out
so
water.
it is one of our core, like we know it's such a core, huge thing that a lot of people are waiting for. We just don't have details around when it's going to be live. It's such a big undertaking. And a lot of it is tied into, I know I've mentioned this before, to how we're tackling our plugin functionality to make Webflow extensible in general. And it all has to do it right. We all have to tie it into that ecosystem, or the way that we're designing the extensibility part of Webflow, which is a big effort. So it's hard to say exactly when multi-language is going to ship, but it's something that for us is one of our top priorities. And I would, it's one of the, as somebody who's an immigrant and knows a lot of people specifically in Russia waiting for this feature, and having spoken to a lot of users, Webflow users, around how much this is needed. It's a big thing. It's just it's so big that it's kind of on the level of CMS and e-commerce, that we have to invest a lot more engineering resources, and we'll update the community as we have more details. But that's one of those big things that we want to get really right before getting it out there.
Yep. And I always say, and I'll repeat it again for the community, it's easy to make something hard to use. It's hard to make something easy to use. And we're working on the hard.
In this case, it's a very multifaceted problem. That's a multi-language.
Yeah, I got that one.
Yeah, like it fell flat.
I got it. Don't worry.
We need a
laugh track.
We need a community to have just like a groan button.
Put your groans in chat, please. All right. Stephanie, when will it be possible for multiple team members to work in the designer at the same time? Yeah.
Good question. We're making a lot of progress on that. So we have an entire collaboration team formed around that core problem. You'll see some immediate improvements soon, where we're going to make the collaboration a lot more elegant, where right now you sort of like have to kick people out, or there's not a good sort of handover process. So we have an entire team working on that collaboration piece to move closer and closer to real-time editing. It's again, hard to say exactly when we're going to get to a full working mode there, because there's just a lot of things that are page specific and a lot of things that are site specific. So if you imagine editing styles in many cases go across all pages. So we have to be really careful around not just like locking a page while you're editing, but also making sure that as you make style changes, they reflect everywhere, and that way you're not designing against something stale. And we have some prototypes internally around like full-on multiplayer support, but it's just going to take some time to really figure out all the edge cases. So again, big priority for us. We're actively working on it. Things are going to roll out as we have them ready and working. This is one of those things where we also have to get it right, because we don't want to get into situations where changes are overridden by somebody else, etc. So still a lot to do there, but you should see some tangible big steps in that direction over the next few weeks and months.
Nice. I didn't know there was a prototype. Man, I would love to see that. But Jose is asking about multi-image field, and I think Kyle spoke about this. Oh yeah, Kyle and Linda actually did a demo a couple of weeks back on the stream to show you how to use it with the new CSS Grid 2.0. Yeah, any updates on that?
It's coming. It's towards the very, very end of development. There's nice. A lot of things we need to do to like hook it up correctly to light boxes, and make sure that like it works like you would expect with a multi-reference type of collection list. But it's almost there. So it's one of those things that will probably be if not the next or one of the next things to be released.
Okay. Matt is asking about multifaceted filtering, sorting stuff for e-commerce, like when you're looking for size, category, color, etc.
Yeah, we're not actively working on that right now, but it is something that as we get closer to our the way that we're approaching making Webflow more extensible. It is something that's we have to determine the demand for, because it's not just for e-commerce, it's for a lot of a lot of sites have been built in Webflow with some third-party tools that allow something like that, but they have to use JavaScript on the client to hide some things and show some others. So for now, that's probably going to be the best way to do that until we make it a first-class thing. But again, things like multi-language support, like really, really valuable use cases, would probably come first. Multi-image field, potentially CMS gallery, things like that that are used in many more applications would probably be first in terms of prioritization.
Yeah, it makes sense. Now that you're saying we're just getting started, yeah, these are all the features that we're working on or going to work on. This is just the first step to bigger things. So
yeah,
we'll
which I know,
there.
like as a an author or as an entrepreneur, somebody using Webflow, that's probably not what you want to hear. Like this is the first step, and Webflow's been around for 5+ years, and it's going to be another potentially 5+ years until we have major bits of functionality built out. But believe me, we're trying to figure out how we can scale our product development, our team, our company overall to build things faster, to execute faster, to figure out to ruthlessly prioritize and figure out what the most important things for our customers are, especially as more and more businesses come online to start to use Webflow. Like we have some serious companies switching over, like big marketing site deployments and moving over to Webflow, where we're now going toe to toe with more advanced, way more seasoned CMSs like WordPress and Magento, etc. So we have a lot to catch up on, to be honest, and we're trying to get there as quickly as possible, but do so in a way that still balances the needs of our team, the needs of our customers, the needs kind of how quickly we can evolve the underlying technology. We don't want to just like build features for the sake of features and then have everyone sort of pay the cost of that later with things breaking or not being built to our level of to our standard of quality, etc. But even though this is the first step, we want to get there as quickly as possible, and that's the thing that personally is the most convicting and driving for me. Like, how do we get more valuable features and capability out into the hands of creatives, business owners, entrepreneurs, etc. Because that's super frustrating when I use other products and you kind of like there's that one key thing that's missing. It's so hard to keep waiting. So I totally understand the pain behind that.
Yeah, and it's all about our team's dual mission. A really good product, but at the same time, impactful lives for the people who work on this product. So it's a balance. It's a balance, and want to make sure that everyone is happy, including you, the community. All right, Alan is asking, are you planning to improve the way we manage CSS classes, like the style manager and the assets, or folders, or reordering items? That would be very helpful. Okay, so it's style manager and the assets manager. Any update?
Yes. Yeah. The question is not if, but when. We already have some designs for some major overhauls to the asset manager to make it more kind of organizable and a lot more streamlined, especially for larger projects. But it's just a question of how quickly we can get to actually implementing it compared to other initiatives. So for now, I think, and we also have some things around like the style manager where we're going to be creating more kind of like global swatches. We're going to be moving closer and closer to building design systems in Webflow with like, design tokens, the colors, and typography settings that you can sort of change centrally, and then they flow through classes that happen to use those tokens. Similar to global swatches, except at a little bit of a higher level. So there's going to be more and more development over time on that stuff. It's just, again, it's hard to say. I'm going to be like a broken record here saying, not being able to give you exact timelines and things like that. But hopefully, I've talked about this stuff enough before around how difficult it is to predict these things, especially since priorities change as we learn more and as we start to build things and talk to customers. We see other things that are way more needed or way more valuable or way more painful that we need to solve first.
Fabio is asking how to use Webflow to develop distance learning courses. I'm not sure, distance or distinct.
Yeah, I think that I've heard of distance. It's like e-learning, etc.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's a good question.
One of our support team members.
Sorry?
Yeah, one of our web support team members, Micah, he actually did a learning course for the support team internally.
Yeah, and we had IDEO build out their design thinking course through Webflow. It did require some custom code and some integrations with other products. So Webflow is not a verticalized solution for creating e-learning or that kind of thing, where there's specific products that make that a little easier, maybe actually most likely without the kind of design control that Webflow offers. But you could, especially if you're there are some products like MemberStack, et cetera, that sort of sit on top of Webflow to make give various levels of access control to things like courses, private content, et cetera. So you could research how to combine Webflow, the design tool, and hosting capability with some of those kind of additions. But or if you're just designing a learning experience where you don't need user accounts or anything like that, like kind of designing a flow or a wizard, I think that's already possible through even using some foundational features like sliders, or like just have present educational content over the course of various pages, the same way that we do on Webflow University, which is a major learning destination, where all 100% of our students learning are doing so from their own computers and across 150 plus countries, et cetera. So if you can be creative and don't require some of those kind of more traditional tools that other e-learning specific products offer, I think you can build something really compelling in Webflow, and over time our intention is to make that even easier. So when we add things like logins and user accounts, that becomes a lot more of a straightforward thing to build.
Nice. Yep. Dimitri, custom breakpoints, please.
I hear you. It's high on the list for our designer experience team. It's yeah.
So it's something that we're looking into.
It's something that we have we know we need to fix.
Huh.
Especially on the larger breakpoint side, because right now us maxing out at 940/160 is admittedly behind the times. Like we have quite a bit of catch up to do there.
I've always been a fan of just using as less breakpoints as possible and just solving for the in-betweens with percentage VH VW and stuff like that.
That's generally the preferred approach, and most coding frameworks limit the number of breakpoints, although you have the capability to kind of like add some custom ones. And usually it is not the best practice to add we've had some competitors in the past like Adobe Edge Reflow that allowed unlimited breakpoints essentially. And what ended up happening was like overly not really learning the underlying principles around relative positioning and using percentage units and like things like max width, max height, etc. There was a lot of like pixel based design on every single 10 pixels, and that led to like really bloated code, really kind of suboptimal experience as you resize into smaller resolutions, etc. But we know we need to at least add flexibility around larger breakpoints than we have right now, just because when we first started, it was like the landscape was different, just in terms of like monitor resolutions, etc.
All right. Jose again. A customizable audio player has been on the wish list for a while. Has there been any discussion on adding this feature or making MP3s a file you can upload to the CMS? Ooh, one note about this question. Udesly, they make a lot of Webflow components, and I think they just came out with an audio player. And that's what I love about the community, that they're creating components that you can use, like for user login and stuff. Since we don't have it yet, you can use MemberStack and other platforms. Like for the learning course, I know that Micah used Knack, and so there's so many things you can still tie into Webflow and get what you need now before we make it native inside of Webflow.
Yeah, I'd say that customize like an audio player that's native, that's visually specified, is probably going to be a while. Like we have I think more applicable things like CMS gallery, for example, is going to come first, because a gallery that's powered by multi-image fields or various CMS items is much more of a common use case than playing audio. And I know already with dynamic embeds right now, it's possible to embed things like SoundCloud, etc. I know that's not as customizable as Jose, you're probably expecting, but I think the most obvious approach now is to do something with custom code as an embed, using something like what the Udesly folks are suggesting. But I don't know exactly when we'll have that as part of a kind of a first class citizen. Maybe that's something that's going to be built by a third-party developer once we have an extensions API.
Okay, cool. And that's what I'm super excited about, is like an extensions API or component marketplace or whatever. I mean, I feel like that's when the doors are going to open up so wide for the community, because people will be building their own things and it's like, hey, Webflow, what about this? Well, the community has already built it. Oh, okay, cool, thanks. Oh, can't wait for that. Stefan, I'm doing a lot of Webflow prototype work with Fortune 100 and 500 companies. Yay! Good job. Can you talk a little bit about what security measures you take to keep our information secure? Oh, awesome question.
Yeah, great question. I mean, we have more and more larger enterprise companies, but this is something that matters not just to enterprise companies, it matters to everyone. Like we all want to know that our information is secure, not just our user information, but like the designs we're working on, etc. And here we take that very seriously. So we encrypt everything at rest. We have a way to, essentially the way our infrastructure team models how we store data. It's all on as inaccessible as possible of a design. So essentially, in order to get to our database server, you need to have like multiple levels of escalating privilege, and most engineers at Webflow don't even have access to the database, etc. So we use industry best practices to make sure that only the core engineers that need to set up the where we store our information have access to those systems, and those systems are protected by multiple levels of authentication, where it's not just like a username and password. You need like a two-factor thing that's audited, and we make sure that people really understand that it's not just like, like we used to throw up WordPress sites in the old days, where it's just like a PHP server and a MySQL server, and you kind of hope security picture works out. So for us, this is we're very careful around logging all. Like we'll never go and look at site information. We have some tools for our support team. So for example, if you contact us and say, hey, I'm having trouble with this site, but then we ask for your permission to go look at a read-only link or a published site that you put behind a password, and we only look at those designs as with your permission to help with some sort of design issue, etc. And over time, as we go into more and more enterprises, we're going to be actually pretty soon going to be hiring a security and compliance function that will work towards not just, because right now we're using infrastructure like Amazon, Fastly, et cetera, that has their own security certifications, but we'll be seeking our own kind of internal audits and certifications to share with all of our customers to show exactly which steps and procedures we follow to keep information secure. So far, it hasn't been like, we haven't been at the scale where the cost of that is justified, because it's usually in the hundreds of thousands, if not more, to do those levels of audits, et cetera. But it's something that we're getting closer and closer to as we get more and more customers that are looking for something more formal. But yeah, hopefully that there's a bunch of technical details that we can probably share. Like we have a bug bounty program set up where a bunch of engineers, they're called white hat engineers, people who are interested in finding security flaws before somebody that's nefarious finds them. And we have a bounty program set up where if people find issues, we fix them, we pay out a bounty. So like incentives are aligned to get people to responsibly disclose any issues that might be found in one of the libraries that we rely on, or some code that we wrote, et cetera. So there's like a constant level of testing happening to make sure that there are no holes in our systems. And as we grow and mature as a engineering and security and infrastructure organization, those things are going to become more and more formal. And we hope to have like really rigorous documentation to show, especially for like the larger customers that need to go in and audit our systems. Like we're going to be working on processes to enable that happening. That's probably going to be associated with like more enterprise-y plans, because those things do take a long time to like fill out those questionnaires and really go in and look at the all of the things that are in play there. But it is something that we're shooting towards.
Yeah. And people with more enterprise type questions, you can go to webflow.com/enterprise and fill out a form to get in contact with our team. Yeah. All right. In other words, it's secure. All right.
And the cool thing about Webflow's, like anytime some broad security issue is found, we can fix it centrally, and everybody gains from that patch. Whereas things like WordPress are notorious for a new issue being found, and then you kind of have to, like, sometimes these installations are kind of vulnerable for years because people don't know how to upgrade to the next version, or like the theme isn't compatible, etc. So that's one of the huge advantages of hosting with Webflow, is that it is secure by default, and we have a team internally that worries about that stuff, and not every individual kind of WordPress or whatever, like Joomla, etc. installation needs to worry about upgrading their own code.
Yeah, and that's the part I keep telling people. Who are like, I'd rather have Webflow installed on my own environment, but it's like, yeah, but just like the old days of WordPress, like you have to have a whole security team making sure that everything's okay, and you have to pay for that team. And with Webflow, you're only paying once for a site plan. So, yeah. All right, Sam. Is it possible that some hosting tiers would be available for nonprofit and charitable use? Perhaps with the Made in Webflow badge visible all the time, it might be good PR for the company. On a similar theme, are there particular charities or causes Webflow as an organization supports? Cheers.
That's a great question. There have been some. We don't have a full public policy yet around, like a blanket nonprofit discount or something like that. But it's something that we're leaning more into. We've made more and more kind of one-time extensions of either free service or half off or whatever, depending on the situation of the organization. And I don't have a full list of charities that we've supported off the top of my head. I know one of the biggest ones has been News Story Charity, which is an organization that helps underprivileged folks build homes in developing countries especially after major events like earthquakes, etc. And now they're 3D printing homes, etc. And we've supported them first as a they're hosting on Webflow, and then we supported multiple initiatives to actually fund multiple homes, etc. over the years. But I think there's something really interesting here, especially if we can make it mutually beneficial for everyone. If it'd be interesting to know if nonprofits are actually, because a lot of nonprofits have big budgets. Something like a $20 hosting plan is not going to move the needle one way or another. But if somebody is if there's a nonprofit that has no budget, then that's definitely on a totally different scale than some company with a budget. So I think that's something that we're happy to consider and hopefully make a formal program around it. But I'd be curious, honestly, if there are if sort of the Webflow badge visible at all times is something people would even consider, because that kind of depends on if people are willing to do that or not. Yeah. We also are heavy supporters of open source. So there's a lot of open source technologies, which are typically developed by individuals, and they're not part of companies. And we have contributed quite a bit to support those organizations. Not in small part because they've also our company wouldn't exist without open source technologies. It's just a tiny way of giving back to that community as well.
Yeah. All right. John is asking, I think he has two questions here. Any plans for dropping jQuery, and also any plans for supporting the add remove class in interactions?
Dropping jQuery. That's a loaded one. Yes, we want to over time. It might be a kind of cutover where new sites no longer have it, and then existing sites kind of have to keep it. But we have to. It's all a part of our transition into plugins or extensions. So we have to figure out how that's going to work, because some people already rely on jQuery in their custom code, which there might be a transition period where if you do rely on it, you might have to have an adapter or something or manually add it back in, etc. But it is something that is a technology that's on its way out. It really helped us get to where we are, and we built a lot of stuff on the foundation of jQuery. We've already removed it from our actual core product. It only remains on published sites, and even that has been dropping steadily, sort of behind the scenes, especially as we develop new features. So yes, we want to phase it out, especially since for a lot of things it's just overkill. We only use a small subset of what it offers, but we do have to be thoughtful around how we do that, because some people are relying on it in their custom code. So if we do that, it's going to there's going to be plenty of heads up
Okay. All right. Snapper. Has there been
Oh,
any
and
discussion?
adding and removing
Sorry.
class
Yeah.
interactions. I'm not sure what the current plans around that are, but it's something I can bring up with our interactions team.
Okay. Yeah, I remember seeing that on the interactions landing page a while back, and I don't know if it's still there, saying coming soon, but yeah.
Yeah, that's one of those things that's relatively straightforward to put on a page, a lot harder to build.
Yeah. We're going to invent time travel. Easy to put on a page. All right, Snapper, has there been any discussion on expanding Webflow forms, specifically multiple recipients and or specific recipients per form? Ah, yes.
Yeah, there have been quite a few conversations around that, and we now have our dashboard team that's looking at that. I don't know exactly what the status of those conversations is. I just know it's important because we first built forms under the assumption that there's going to be like one contact form, and there's quite a bit of re-architecture we have to do to make it aware of multiple forms.
Yeah.
But I know it's a pain point. It's a huge one.
I always suggest people to use like something like Typeform or something and just embed that in, because Typeform has a lot of features, including logic, custom logic you can do with your forms, which is really nice.
Right.
So
at some point, I hope we have an entire team around forms specifically, because there's so much power. For Typeform, their entire company is oriented around forms. They have 100+ people, and at some point, I think that will make sense for us to really double down on that functionality and make it a lot more powerful.
All right. Stefan, where did the name Webflow come from? Also, is there going to be a Webflow conference? Ooh, love this question.
Dun, dun, dun. Where did the name Webflow come from? It's a good question. It was a divine revelation.
Really?
It's just a kind of a play on how can you make web design flow, right? And it's just sort of obvious. And then at some point,
you fell in love with that name.
Sorry?
And you fell in love with that name.
It's like a great name. I mean, what's not to like about it? And it even started with a capital F, which was like one of the biggest regrets of my life. I kid. But yeah, it was sort of like, and there was also another, I don't think it's new, because in the 90s, there was even a company called Webflow that one of the officers there was Eric Schmidt, who was the CEO of Google for a long time. And we actually share the same investor. Our first investor, Tim Draper, was a investor in that company as well. So it's funny, like the same investor invested in the same company named Webflow, or not the same company, the company with the same name twice, which is awesome.
Oh, awesome.
And conference?
Conference.
Crossing fingers that the answer is yes. I think that's a pretty obvious next step. It's just a question of when, not if.
Yeah. And we're actually we're about to get a person to help speed that along. So,
by the way, this whole Q&A has been like pretty low on dad jokes. What's going on?
I know. I don't know.
Like maybe I'm not being set up for them properly.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna blame the host for not helping moving that along. I am so sorry. I'm not a funny person. Again, my wife says when you're trying to be funny, you're lame. When you're not trying to be funny, you're hilarious. So
yeah. I do think you're a funny person, Nelson. Give yourself some credit.
Thank you. But I'm not gonna try to be funny, because then I'm just gonna disappoint the whole community. People are gonna leave the stream.
Yeah.
All right. Cedric is asking, is it planned that the Webflow CMS is becoming more modular in the future? I always wish that I could put together a case study, for example, with predefined modules and have them in a particular sequence, but not all the same like in collections until now. Ah, yes.
I'm not sure what that means. I could put together a case study, for example.
So a couple streams ago, I did a dynamic or a collection template page where it had three different layouts,
Mm-hmm.
and the CMS editor can choose between which layout that they want to do. But
I
I
see.
reused the data
Mhm.
multiple times and then just
I
showed whichever option was selected.
gotcha. Yeah, I'm not sure. One of our biggest focuses is to make the CMS more powerful. But I don't know exactly when we would have like the level of modularity that you're looking for, Cedric.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the if you watch the stream a couple Cedric, if you watch the stream a couple weeks back, you'll see what I did, and maybe that's a solution to what you're looking for. Uh, Marco is asking for custom media queries, so custom breakpoints. We've already answered that one. Uh, Valentina, are you planning to have explanations for how to use e-commerce just for the client? Right now at the university, most of the explanations are with screenshots taken from the designer, not from the editor. Ooh.
Yeah, that's a good question. We've produced some content around using the editor, but specifically just for editing content. We haven't done that for e-commerce yet, but it is a next. It's on the list of priorities for our education team. They're working on a big course right now that touches on grid and e-commerce, but still from the perspective of the designer. But we have a lot more work to do to make it more accessible for people using the editor. And I think that's going to be a pretty big theme over the next year or so, where we have to enable our service professionals and freelancers and agencies to just have way better tools to present to their clients around like the advantages of Webflow or how to use it, etc. Just to give you all the tools that are necessary, so you don't have to like recreate them from scratch. But that's a good reminder that we have a lot more work to do there.
Yep. I know that the content and education team work together to create a client's guide to the CMS editor.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we can go to the team and say, can you make another guide specifically for e-commerce
Mm-hmm.
clients? So yeah,
Yep.
it could be possible.
We
All
have the
right.
technology.
Yes, we have the people. We have the technology. It will happen. Heba is asking, Vlad, are you a designer first or a developer?
Um, that's a complicated story. I actually started as a designer in Corel Draw, making business cards. I used to work at this place called the Russian Yellow Pages as a teenager. So I would make like business cards and calendars and like yellow page ads, and you really don't want to see some of those designs. They were just like,
I kind of do. I kind of do.
let's just say it was a lot of art that was clipped. So clip art from like this giant clip art book, and a lot of Comic Sans. I'm ashamed.
Was your art also full of word? See, I'm trying to be funny and I can't. I was just trying to
Don't
get to
force it.
word
Don't
art.
force it. Maybe today's just not the day. It's just not our day, Nelson. But
It's
anyway,
not my day.
after that, I mostly did design, and then sort of was forced to go into computer science because that's what my brother was doing. Hated that, then dropped out, went to art school here in San Francisco called the Academy of Art to study
Oh.
3D animation. So
Oh.
that I had to study, classic art, composition, color theory, perspective, animation, sculpting, modeling, etc. And only a couple of years in, doing all the traditional sort of foundational art classes, I fell in love with programming again because my best friend and I built this startup called Chatterfox, which was like I picked up a book on programming and built this, like chat application, and sort of forgot about the whole 3D thing, forgot about my dreams to work at Pixar, dropped out, went back to computer science school, and then kind of got my degree there. Although, to be honest, like, I don't know what I learned from the degree. It was mostly working at like this creative agency during when I was kind of getting my degree that was the most helpful, because we were building a bunch of websites, and that's where the initial idea and inspiration for Webflow came from. So it's sort of like a big combination of like design, then programming, then back to art and design, then back to programming. And as you can probably tell, Webflow is a combination of both of those. So, thankfully I had the experience in both realms, and saw like how much other industries like 3D animation, like digital editing, like visual effects, like particle effects and game design, how much they have built like amazing tools that put the power into the hands of creatives, and web design just didn't have something like that. So it was just a matter of how do we get to that level of fidelity and that level of like really powerful tools for the web, which is arguably a way more powerful medium, because you can create entire products. You can like, even stupid little products like I Can't Has Cheeseburger, right? That like ranks memes in order of, ridiculousness, has started like social movements, or like, I don't know, Urban Dictionary. That's like a really small, just a tiny CMS with like a way to submit things and, look stuff up. But the web and software in general, like what you can do on the web is so much more powerful than creating a 3D movie, which could be great, but it doesn't impact people's lives as much, that we decided that something like that needs to exist for the web. It's a lot harder to build because you don't resize a movie screen and make sure the story still plays well, right? So I have a lot fewer constraints there. So you can almost think of like web design as like 4-dimensional, because not only do you have X, Y, and Z, but also like resizing, which is a whole other dimension. But yeah, that's sort of the answer is yes on both. I'm designer and developer.
If you could have worked on any Pixar film, which one would you have worked on?
That's a great question. Probably Up. I don't know why. That's just like one of the most emotional movies for me, especially in the early beginning part of it.
The first scene.
Yeah.
Oh no. Oh, that one made me cry so hard. And there was this little
that Up reference made you down or brought you down.
It did. There was this little girl and her mom sitting right in front of my wife and I as we were watching it for the first time. And after that scene, and you saw the old man with the balloon, she straight up said, "Mommy, where's the lady?"
Aww.
Tears. No, couldn't handle it. All right, but yes, very good story, very good choice. All right, back on it. Noah, what are Webflow's plans for adding more functionality to meet the extensive design capabilities? For example, if-else statements, functional logic, similar to what Bubble does to make our websites on Webflow even that much more dynamic and reactive for our users. Logic in Webflow.
Yeah, we want to get there. There's some things that are already supported. For example, conditional visibility is our first foray into logic, where you can say like, if this condition matches, then do this. So that is sort of serves as the foundation for future visual logic on the component side, on things that are you can see in the design of a component. And over time, we want to move closer to like fully functional software, right? Where you'll be able to design backend logic, visually via like a flow chart or something like that, versus having to go to like a bunch of APIs and doing stuff through code. So there's sort of like the direction and how quickly we're going to get there is a big question. The things like user systems and multi-language and those things are in much like more of a dire need for a lot of folks. So we want to tackle those first, but we also want to figure out if we as a company can actually parallel a lot more development and build more things in parallel. And we're like, that's something that we're trying to get our engineering team into, kind of a repeatable, really kind of flowing, uh, kind of humming software development process where we can take bigger bets and take more of them, and know that that investment is gonna work out, and keep everybody who's working on these products are like really fulfilled and not overworked or burnt out, etc. So we want to figure out ways to work on more things while not while keeping things like really well integrated, and not make Webflow feel like a completely disjointed set of slapped together features. But there are certainly things like that, like logic, and that can be worked on in parallel. It's just like, how do you combine it with everything else? But it's if our overall mission is to empower people to build software without writing code, so that all has to be part of it. It's just a question of when, not if.
Yep.
Which is sort of like, again, I'm broken record.
We get it. I mean, giving a date, it doesn't help anyone. Doesn't help, because if we miss it, then people are mad. And we don't want to miss any dates. But we'll get it to you. Roman is asking.
My wife gets mad when I miss a date.
So you don't give her any dates like, hey, we're gonna go to dinner.
That's a dating joke. Yeah.
We're gonna go to dinner sometime in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, those are dates I commit to. Believe you me, I love those dates.
All right. Roman is asking, any plans to remove default Google Fonts integration? I don't need Open Sans on my site, but Webflow requests all the font styles anyway. Mandatory.
That sounds like a bug, actually. So that if you don't use Open Sans, we should not be delivering it on your site. So that's a bug. Please contact our support team.
Yeah. University.webflow.com/contact. Heba, next question from Heba. What's the 5-year vision for Webflow? So you'll be 41?
Yeah, is that before or after global warming destroys everything?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Gotta bring it back down to reality.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, like I mentioned, we're moving more into more powerful use cases, but we also want to make Webflow a lot more accessible to smaller businesses and people who don't have super pro designers working on their sites. So there's just a lot of, it's looking back 5 years, honestly, like if I was to say where Webflow is going to end up, I would be way off to where we are today. Like we weren't even thinking about e-commerce. We weren't thinking about, maybe back then we started thinking about CMS. But it's kind of like, I know there's expectations and then there's sort of reality. So I don't know how much to sort of project out that far. I just know that our big vision is to make more software possible, and empower people to build more and more complex things, and get products out there. And that might mean a lot of things. Feature-wise, might also mean that we expand into many different markets or personas, or even simplify things. So I don't know. I just know it's going to be great. And there's going to be a lot more capability. And the biggest, like my biggest part of the vision of that is that the community is so much bigger. Like right now, it's already amazing, and we have a lot of great folks, and all of you in this room are part of it. But I imagine it being 100 times bigger 5 years from now. That is something that's entirely in the realm of possibility, because there's other communities like WordPress, et cetera, that are that large or larger. So it's only a matter of time. And I think that's really the most exciting thing, because that is what drives innovation and product development, and keeps us honest, and brings us more customers, and keeps everyone excited around like what we're building, and the power that Webflow brings. So like, yeah, that's the thing I'm most excited about,
Yeah.
is the level of excitement on a personal level, and maybe even on a, human to human in real life type of connections that explodes through the roof. So we're not just like chatting on these, virtual hangouts, but people are meeting in person and forming community and like building things
Yes.
together, and just keeping each other inspired and supporting each other, helping through like tough problems, and helping each other like find customers and clients, and strategizing on how to do things that are like way outside of Webflow, right? But are important for building a freelance business, or a new product, or an e-commerce experience, etc. So that's what I'm most excited about. Like having Webflow be synonymous with amazing community, supportive people, like kind and excited individuals, and just impactful technology that just makes the world a better place. I know there's like super startup cliche, like, oh, we're going to change the world and revolution this and blockchain that. But I honestly believe that by democratizing technology that's traditionally harder for people to access, and empowering people to do a lot more, is just like works wonders, because people can make a living when they otherwise couldn't, or businesses can make more money because it's easier for them to get online. Brands can like grow and thrive because it's so much easier to tell their story, and all that is just. I think Webflow has all the things that are necessary in that recipe to make our community grow.
Yeah.
I'm tearing up a little bit just saying that stuff. So
Oh.
that's next question.
Yeah. I again, back to the passion for it. I mean, the passion for the community. And you said so that cliche thing, because we want to change the world. I would think it's more of a, we're building a product to let you, the community, make the world better. We want to enable that, and to do that is to democratize the web, and that's what we're trying to do. And every time there's a great website out there that's helping the community, helping a client get their business off the ground, because you're making it easier for them to maintain their site, and they don't have to worry about all these technical things that, like security and whatnot, you're doing it. You're changing the world. So, I mean, thank you to everyone in the community, and I think that's what you're feeling. And last thing about the 5-year thing, how you couldn't figure out where we're going to be. 5 years ago, I think you showed this on your Twitter stream. It wasn't even called Webflow. It was Marked Up.
Well, 5 years ago, it was Webflow. I think 15 years ago. Oh, no. In 2007, we almost called it Marked Up. MARKDUP, because Web 2.0 was like trendy to remove letters because you couldn't get domain names. But yeah, we didn't have the rights to use Webflow the name, and it was like the most, I don't know, cringy thing to want to name the company Marked Up. But we went all the way. Like we designed the logos. Like Sergi also designed those logos, and we almost did it. But I'm glad we didn't go in that direction.
Yeah. All right. Okay, Valentina, I just saw that you can change the name of the. I just saw now you can change the names of the title and the labels in the CMS. It will be good to have the same for a product from e-commerce. Also, be able to add a help text to guide your client of what he/she has to type in the field. For example, you have now description, but there is no way to add a help text, like no more that.
Yeah, that sounds like a
feature.
We can connect Valentina to our CMS team and look through what we can do there. Sounds like a pretty quick win potentially.
Yeah, thank you for that, Valentina. Pablo's asking, should users expect price increases as the company gets bigger?
I mean, this is something that is never exactly set in stone. We've had price increases in the past. We've always tried to do the right thing and grandfather folks and not change prices under. So, for example, if you're on a plan now, you shouldn't expect it to change. Maybe if you cancel and then come back, and we happen to be experimenting with our prices, and it could, there's no way I can say that it's not going to change. Webflow has generally had the same pricing since August 2013, and think about all the functionality we've added since then. We didn't even have multiple pages, interactions, CMS. I mean, the works, right? Grid, Flexbox, so many things that we were able to add since then, and fundamentally didn't change our pricing. But over time, especially as we see more and more bigger companies start to onboard onto Webflow, where they are in some cases even taking budget from like 3 or 4 engineers working on a marketing site and moving everything to Webflow, and like that's a super valuable conversion where you can move a lot faster and not have to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for engineers, and like that being equivalent to $20 a month is not exactly the most aligned with the value that businesses like that get. So there's just a lot of things that we might experiment with providing like bigger, like more valuable types of functionality for larger businesses, things like SLAs and like more hands-on customer support, et cetera. And over time, what we want is fair, transparent, and aligned pricing where it's not like where the value of what you get with Webflow is pretty obvious. Like to reproduce it somewhere else would cost more. So, and right now we're already pretty low priced, even compared to, for example, we're pretty aggressively priced even compared to Squarespace, where our low end part of hosting is the same price, if not cheaper than Squarespace, which is vastly less, design control and functionality, et cetera. They don't have a super powerful CMS like we do, et cetera. So we want to solve for both things. Like we want more people using Webflow, but not to the degree where we're just discounting it and devaluing it as a product, because we do believe that what we're creating is really valuable and brings value to businesses and to freelancers, et cetera. In many cases, like to the point where Webflow becomes the primary, like by using Webflow, it becomes a primary source of income for a lot of folks. So I can't guarantee that prices won't change or increase, especially with inflation or, as we experiment with different pricing and packaging offers. But one thing I can say is that we really don't want to punish our existing like early believers, where we default to grandfathering folks on existing plans and not surprising people with new pricing out of the blue. So that's something that we haven't done a lot of in the past. One of those areas that you kind of is one of the hardest to change, but we already are hearing a ton of feedback around how complex our pricing is right now, to like really understand the difference between team plans and designer plans and hosting plans or site plans, and there's a lot to be said to simplicity there. So we might be looking at how do we simplify the entire pricing model while still keeping our core principles around, like, we want to build a company that is a real business, and we can keep investing into the product versus sort of like the Uber model where you spend $2 million to earn $1 million just to win in the market, or whatever. So there's just a lot that's up in the air in terms of like future pricing. That's probably many companies experiment with pricing changes like every week, and they learn from that. So nothing is off the table, but like our principle is we want to make sure that Webflow is very fairly priced, so that it's not something where you feel like nickel and dimed, or that you just are reluctantly using it. It should be an obvious, clear set of value that we're delivering, and it's a fair trade where you're helping us run a company that helps improve the product, and we're helping you support your business or your agency to get like more and more work done. And it's like a virtuous cycle where we are looking out for each other to make sure that we're both successful.
Yeah. We're gonna go to Paul. there seems to be a real sense of community around the products by the users, e.g., people helping each other out on the forums, etc. Is this something you actively have promoted or do promote? It definitely seems like a nice group of people that have picked up on the product.
Yeah, we've been really lucky with the community that we've built, and I think a large part of that is just the creative nature of Webflow. You know, creators are typically people who want to build something awesome and, you know, make it real and make it available to others, help others solve problems, and there's a big aspect to, you know, when you see somebody else learning, you really want to help, and that draws out the kindest and most kind of giving people. So we've been lucky to build a community on you know, exemplary people like that, like Nelson, yourself included, right? You were one of our very first early community members, and that's something that we can kind of intentionally work on to, you know, create more events, make it easier for people to have the resources to do meetups and you know, do talks and teach others and do like workshops, etc. So there's more we can do to encourage that, but really at the end of the day, it's just the amazing people who like give their time and energy into helping others, and you just can't, like, that's not something you can manufacture out of thin air. That's just good people helping other good people to learn and grow and do important things.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who joined the team from the community, from the forums. I mean, Waldo, Waldo, who leads our customer support team, he's always about being kind and helping people out, and it's just awesome that he leads that team. And other people, I mean, I can't name them all off because there's so many from the forums.
So glad that we found him.
Yes. Yes. Oh, God, see, yeah, we found Waldo. Now I get it. God, see, jokes just. Anyways, all right, we have about no, it wasn't. It's just I couldn't get it fast enough. But we have 8 minutes left. Let's wow, there's 72 questions.
Oh, there's some awesome jokes in here. What's
all right,
brown
let's get
and
into
sticky? Yeah, it's a stick. By the way, I have some like really terrible, like, they're called anti-jokes. So I don't know if I've asked you these, Nelson, but no. What did one lawyer say to the other lawyer?
I don't know.
We're both lawyers.
Okay, now like I understand.
Stupid that it's obvious. Or what did the farmer say when he lost his tractor?
Where's my tractor?
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're catching on.
Yeah, it's easy to catch on. Yeah. Let's see here. There's no one else has any jokes.
Oh, this is great. Which country's capital has the fastest growing population? Ireland. Every day it's Dublin. That's
okay.
That's pretty good.
That was a good one. All right. Let's see here. Did you know the first French fries weren't actually cooked in France? They were cooked in Greece.
Whoa.
That was a good one, Clark.
Wow.
Oh, Noah said that. Why doesn't? Oh, okay.
That joke wasn't like, you know, really bad. It wasn't really great. It was sort of like Mediterranean.
How do you do it? How do you do it?
I don't know. I mean, you greased the wheels on that one, so.
All right. Let's see here. Anything else? Carl's. Let me see. What did Carl say? Let me see here. Wrap this one. My dream is to work at Webflow as a product designer one day. What's the ratio of designers to engineers at Webflow? Also, I think I watched in the last update that you've organized the company around these product areas: grid, CMS, designer experience, dashboard. Is that right? Yes. What differentiates a good product designer?
Designers to developers is about 5-1, I believe. So 5 designers per 1 developer. Just kidding. One designer per 5 developers. By the way, there's a question on here. What happened with React.js? Everyone's talking about it. Is it on Webflow's radar? Actually, yes. Everything, Webflow is fully built on React, and all websites are now surprisingly rendered with React on the server. So we made that happen behind the scenes. And that's one major milestone to building more powerful sites and apps in the future. So even though it might not look like you might see jQuery being delivered, or you might not see React on the final site, but it's all the foundations are there to build everything around the React model.
Cool. Let me get one last question. Or do you want to just pick one random one and we'll end the questions for this stream?
Let's see. I'm looking at any intention to add a Lottie.js component to Webflow. Yes, something is coming that's kind of integrated directly into Webflow for Lottie. So stay tuned. Let's see. Yeah, there's so many questions. I'm sorry. Like, it's hard to.
No. It's totally okay. Yeah. Totally okay.
How long did you take to build Webflow? Ooh, that was it was actually 4 different attempts, and they're all like different technologies, and the only common factor was myself. Like, at first it was by myself, then it was with another co-founder, then it was with actually Kyle, who's one of our who leads e-commerce right now. And then this last attempt starting in 2013 was with Brian Sergi, and that was, I think we spent at least a year building even the demo before we went live, because it's pretty hard to build this kind of thing. Maybe it would be easier today because browsers are a lot more stable, but took us a while. And by the way, there's some questions about iPad OS that I saw.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I spoke to several people at Front recently who were able to verify that it works, except you need a mouse. Like, you need an attached mouse. There's some tap stuff that still needs to be figured out. But we ordered an iPad Pro here for the office just to have some engineers start to poke around and see if we can make it better.
Ooh, that'd be interesting. Awesome. All right. If you didn't get your question answered, be here next quarter or post it on the forums. Maybe Vlad can answer it on the forums. But thank you everyone who's asked a question. Man, that went by pretty quick. It's already 11:27. Do you have anything else you'd like to say to the community before we let you go for this quarter?
No, I like pretzels. I don't know if that's an important fact. I just ruined this whole stream with my pretzel plug.
I like Toidles.
Yeah, the twist you didn't expect. Sorry. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I've said it many times before, but this community is such a strong foundation for what Webflow is. Like, Webflow is a very small part of it is the product itself, and the team that we've built around it, the community that we've built around it, is really our core strength. Really, anyone can build a set of visual tools and technologies, but I think we were so lucky to so fortunate to launch at the right time, at the right moment in history, where a lot of people were, really looking to find a community and to help others and to build for the web. And the web was just like kind of blossoming, and the most creative thing that we had at the time for in terms of accessible ways to build responsive websites was Bootstrap, which was not that creative. So it was just a great combination of factors. And I just want to stress how important it has been for the community to rally around Webflow as a product and as a brand and as a solution, and as a company and as a movement, and help each other out. And honestly, all the requests, all the things you want to see, all those things get us even more excited, even though a lot of times it's convicting that we haven't built it fast enough, or we're not we're not going to get it into your hands as soon as we want. it's just really great to see the energy, to see the commitment, to see your patience, to see so many people like finding creative ways around some of our limitations. And like I mentioned, over the next 5 years, like we want to see this community thrive even more to where it's, Webflow friends that are internet friends become real life friends, become, business partners or best friends, or, who knows, get married, etc., or start companies. And there's just so much potential around what we're building, and how this community is already starting to coalesce. So I'm super excited about it. I don't think I've ever been as excited as I am now. We have a lot more to build, but it's just, amazing to have this this foundation to build on. So thankful to all of you. Appreciate all of you. Please keep us honest. We're here to serve you. We want to build a foundational, long-lasting company that empowers others, that democratizes access to creation on the web. That's a tall order, and we know it's a big responsibility, and we're probably going to mess a lot of things up as we go, but just keep us honest and keep us inspired, and hopefully we can deliver for all of you and build something really awesome together.
Thank you. Thank you for all of your effort, your passion for this and for the community. We'll see you at the end of quarter 3 and see where we're at.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Right.
See you after
Bye,
the summer.
Vlad. Right. And boom. So that was fun. Answered a lot of your questions, not all of them, but come back next quarter. Stay tuned on the YouTube channel, or post your questions on the forums. Thank you, everyone who's in the live chat room. Let's go ahead and end this stream. If you have any account billing or technical questions, please contact Waldo and the great support team over at university.webflow.com/contact. If you have any design or custom code questions, though, please post that in the forum, forum.webflow.com. Join the global community that is there. They want to help out. The community is so fun to hang around, and it's fun to just help. So if you get your question answered, please pass that favor forward and answer someone else's question so we can all grow together. This stream happens every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. Follow us on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/webflow. Hit that notification bell and you'll know whenever we post a new education video or go live on our stream. You can also follow us on facebook.com/webflow, Instagram/webflow, Twitter/webflow. You can follow me at the Pixel Geek. That's about it. Thank you all so much. I'll see you next week. And as always, make the web beautiful. See ya.